Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us today to talk about OpenEdge 12.2 Live. My name is Susan Kudalakis. Welcome to today's Progress Talks. Before I jump in, I wanted to take a minute and introduce you to your host for today. Roy Ellis is our host. He's Senior Product Owner at Progress. He's worked at Progress for over 24 years. After starting in technical support, Roy moved to the web speed development team. Since then, he has helped to deliver many products and features, including the admin server, name server, app server, OpenEdge Explorer and Management, Arcade, and the new Progress application server for OpenEdge. He recently moved to the product management team as a product owner for language features. He enjoys working with customers and presenting at many customer events. Roy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for that introduction. I am Roy. I'm your host today for Progress Talks OpenEdge 12.2 live webinar. Today we'll be joined by product management and engineering leads as they discuss the many new features and capabilities of our latest release. As Progress OpenEdge continues to deliver on the market demands of high availability, high performing and secure applications while taking advantage of the agile development environment. Before we get started, let me introduce you to today's panel. Let's start with Rich Banville. Rich is the OpenEdge Fellow at Progress. He joined Progress in 1993 with a background in operating systems, test, and development. While working on the OpenEdge products, Richard has focused primarily on database storage and on its related products. His area of interest include performance, concurrent programming, and improved usability. Welcome, Rich.
Hey, Ryan.
Our next panelist is Shelley Chase. Shelley is a software fellow with Progress for over 20 years and has a whole product view of OpenEdge. Her technical skills and customer-driven drive the architecture direction of the product. Her passion is in providing a well-architected product with excellent user experience and works with engineers, product managers, and services to guarantee success. Hi, Shelley.
Hi.
Our next panelist is Oleg Kuperschmidt. Oleg joined as the Director of Product Management in 2017. He served as the Senior Product Management roles at Ipswich, CA Technologies, Vivix, and Nokia, and has accumulated extensive experience in leading product teams and managing mission-critical enterprise software solutions. Hello, Oleg.
Hey, everyone.
All right, and last but not least, we have Tim Sargent. Tim is a software fellow and chief AVM architect at Progress and has been with the company since 1987. He wins the longest one of the company, by the way. Tim has worked on many parts of the OpenEdge product, concentrating primarily on the compiler and the runtime engine. He is the chief architect of the paths for OpenEdge multi-threaded agent, and his current interests in OpenEdge are in language development, continuous operations, and application performance. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Roy.
Okay, before we get started with what's new in 12.2, maybe we should talk about the main objectives that we've been working on since we started releasing 12 in the family. Oleg, can you remind us of these themes?
Certainly. Before I even go there, I want to remind everyone that release 12.2 that just came out is a culmination of a multi-year effort to upgrade the experience for our customers in a number of areas. And given that 12.0 and 12.1 have been out for a while and many of you have tried, finally now we rolled out release that will stand test of time and we expect to support for a very long time, over 8 years. So not only today we'll be talking about what's in 12.2, we also have to remember that 12.0 and 12.1 started what's now available to you to adopt as moving from early releases. So our efforts were all centered around three main topics, three main themes. The first one is an effort to improve continuous operations, or also known as high availability. Now, there are two general directions that drive our efforts. The first one is to reduce the need for planned outage. There is a number of changes that need to be done as part of application modernization or maintenance work that in the past required taking database offline, for example. We continue to find ways to make those changes on the fly without loss of uptime. Also, should the unexpected happen, we improved our ability to help you restore the uptime, reduce mean time to repair, improve logging, improve troubleshooting, tuning capabilities. All that collectively helps to improve your end users' continuous uptime experience. In addition to that, we tackled performance. And why performance? Of course, we always want faster, but there is a reason what's driving our continuous efforts to improve performance. Our applications, our IT continues to face larger volumes of data, larger number of customers. And as that happens, unless we invest in upgrading our capabilities of OpenEdge platform, we are going to see degraded performance. So to combat this and stay ahead, we continue to invest, and you will see a lot of improvements, starting with well-publicized server-side joins to a deep analysis in PASO-E AVM performance and capabilities to tune and profile performance and get the best out of your work to put in front of your end users. And we'll be talking more about this. And third pillar of our strategy was so-called developer productivity or ABL modernization. There is a number of areas that we addressed in order to help you stay current and stay ahead of your competition. There is also security changes that continue to be made to OpenEdge to make sure that it stays current. Hackers don't sleep. Many cryptography standards continue to be challenged and new weaknesses explored. We take care of upgrading security infrastructure to ensure that your application can stay relevant, safe for your customers, for your end users. Security is a broad topic. It covers from software security to single sign-on standard authentication, and of course, protection of data at rest and in transit. So we make sure that this is taken care of. Modernization is not only a front end. There is a lot of things that are happening on the back end, and also how we work, how we build applications. So teams are moving towards DevOps. Continuous integration and delivery is something that we want to adopt, and we're continuing to invest to make it possible to develop OpenEdge applications in this new setting. So with that, back to you, Roy.
Thank you, Oleg. Thank you very much. So the first theme was continuous operations or high availability. Before we talk about what we did in 12.2, let's just quickly talk about some of the things we've done in 12.0 and 12.1. More parameters have been changed to keep the database online, so you don't have to take it down to change them. We've improved database space management. AI streaming was to provide zero data loss during an unexpected outage, online schema changes, and much more. So that's what we've come to where we are now. So let's talk about high availability, what we did in 12.2. I think we would like to start with replication. So that would be you, Rich.
Yeah, thanks, Roy. Yeah, so I mean, with any DR strategy, right, we always have to weigh the chance of data loss versus time to recover, right? And how long is it going to be before my system gets back up and running so that my end users can start using the application again, right? That's what we're always weighing. So in 12.2, what we did, we improved the quickness of our recovery transition. And we did that by keeping the database broker running on the target side of replication. So when you fail over, either for a planned or unplanned event, the broker stays up, so it doesn't have to reinstantiate all of those data structures in memory, like the buffer pools and the log files and all that sort of stuff. And the time that was saved it's orders of magnitude, that we saved with this this type of transition. The other thing this will allow you to do is make it easier for you to test your DR strategy, right? If you want to fail over on occasion and then fail back, the amount of time it's going to take you to fail over is orders of magnitude less. So a really nice thing. And this, along with, as you said, the AI streaming, we've got the really fast time to recover and near zero data loss when you do need to fail over. The other thing we did was we updated the information that we report to the log files and logging so that you can see where you are in the transition process as you're doing your failovers.
Excellent. So now we fail over much quicker. That's really good. But what about the application? What about the clients? Tim, can you help us out there in 12.2?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if your database source transitions to the target because of a hardware failure or planned maintenance, it doesn't do your application any good if it doesn't know where to find the database. And so we added a new database connection option, parameter that allows you to specify an alternate database in the event that the first source database becomes unavailable. So when your application connects to your database, if the source is not available, it will automatically connect instead to the alternate. In addition, if your application is up and running, when it loses the connection to the database, then when the AVM restarts, it'll automatically try to connect to the source. When that is not available, it'll switch over to the target, which is the new source.
Excellent, excellent. And I believe there's a video out there for this, so go and see it on our hub, our doc hub. So that's
yes,
our replication.
Starring a real fabulous guy.
Yeah, got to do a self-plug, right?
No, it's you.
That's what I meant, me. I did a self-plug. Okay, so I think that covers the replication changes, which are great. Now we fail over very quickly and the application stays up and running. But Rich, I talked about some of the things we did to keep the database up and running. What else have we done for continuous operations in 12.2?
Well, as you know, we've been chipping away at making all of the database startup parameters online, and in this release we're pretty much finished with that. There's one more piece that we want to do is make it available for secondary brokers, but now we've got 20 parameters that you can manage online with the increase to option, as well as 91 parameters that can be done through Promon or the DB params VST. So there's a total of 111 online parameters. Maybe we have too many parameters, I don't know. But anyways, they all can be done online now. And the new ones that we just released in 12.2 were the ability to change the AI archive directory. Another one that I got a lot of good feedback from our CVP is the changing of PICA. There's also some which affects replication, how replication runs in caches. It's block information. There's also some DB notify changes to determine how many concurrent notifications can be queued up on the system. We also gave the ability to change all of the object range sizes. So index range size, lob range size, table range size, all of the statistics associated with your different objects in the database now can be tuned, increased online, as well as their user-specific counterparts. So the user index range size, user lob range size, user table size. From a server perspective, we also gave you the ability to increase the -mm parameter, which is the size of the network message buffer. So if you didn't set it large enough when you started your database, you can tune it up to get improved throughput for your remote clients. And to manage those remote clients, you may want to increase the number of servers per database or number of clients that can connect to any individual servers. So we gave you the ability to change your MA and MN parameters online. And lastly, I think the most exciting one is as your company grows, you tend to get more and more users. Well, you don't want to have to bring your database down to increase the number of users that can connect to the database. So now you have the ability to increase -n online as well. So it's a lot of new exciting changes. One other thing we did to help with our continuous operations is to make it so that all of the utilities that sit on a screen waiting for input, such as Promon or such as some of the interfaces to the dbutil utilities, while they're sitting there waiting for input from the user, if someone does increase one of these -ns that require additional shared memory structures, those utilities will constantly be checking for this even while they're waiting on the screen. So they'll no longer block the operation of being able to increase these parameters. So that's a lot from the database side of managing parameters and managing the deployment. But we've also done some additional work in a schema management operations, such as give you the ability to create, update, and delete triggers online. Really exciting. If you need to redeploy those triggers, it's a lot of work to get those out all over the place. Now you have the ability to do that while the database is up and running and your application is running. We also provided the ability to rename fields from the ABL. We could always do that from SQL for non-pub schema, but now you can rename your fields from the ABL language. And since the pub schema, which is what the ABL uses, can now support field rename, we also extended that to SQL. So SQL can also do field renames for pub-owned tables. So that's what we did.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's move a little bit off of the database and let's move to paths for OpenEdge. In 12 and 12.1, we added a lot of things to keep the paths for OpenEdge up and running and highly available. We added refresh agents, the health scanner, and deferred logging to help us management. Tim, what's new in 12.2 for paths?
One of the things that we did in PAS OE was something we call PAS OE agent self-management. And this is really sort of more of a robustness change. We improved the way that the PAS OE agent manages its ABL sessions. Up to this point, if the PAS OE agent received a request, if it didn't have an available ABL session, then it would create it on demand. And the problem with this is that if the creation failed, for example, if it tried to connect to the database and there were no more -n connections available, if the creation of the ABL session failed, then the request itself would fail. In 12.2, the PAS OE agent keeps ahead of the game. It creates ABL sessions before they're needed. And Tomcat only sends it a request if it knows that the agent has the capacity to handle the request. And so this way, no more requests will be dropped because of a resource limitation. Instead, the requests will just get queued up in Tomcat.
All right, thank you. About availability, Shelley, I have not been ignoring you. And I know you have some things to tell us about availability.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that we've been working with a lot of customers since 12.0 came out, migrating them to PAS for OE and to OpenEdge 12, and a lot of the focus has been on high availability, as we've been talking about. So what we've done is identified a best practices configuration where we are in support of high availability, including database replication, PAS for OE agents, failover, authentication, load balancing, and even deployment techniques for doing application versioning while still keeping the application online. We've also, which I think is really exciting, started working on a cloud native environment. So Progress has become part of the AWS partner network. And we have an AWS quick start for OpenEdge, which is basically OpenEdge high availability configuration in a box, where an OpenEdge customer can just click a button and one of these configurations is up and running in their AWS cloud. This is just in the beginning stages, so we are starting a pilot program. And we would love to get feedback on anyone that's interested in cloud native environments, get feedback, have them try out this quick start and get feedback. If that's something that your company might be working on, please let us know through the CVP program.
Thank you, Shelley. And thank you for mentioning the CVP, or Customer Validation Program. Members of the CVP were part of our development process for 12.2. They saw functional specs early, they saw early demos of features, and they were able to discuss and shape these features before they were finished. So if you'd like to apply to be a member of CVP, you can do that on our website. All right, I think we've covered everything with continuous operations and availability. So why don't we move on to the next theme? And I think that's performance. Tim, can you start us off?
Sure. I mean, we're constantly looking at performance and ways that we can improve performance in every dimension. One of the things that we did with PAS-OE is, as many of you are aware, the PAS-OE agent executes ABL code. And since the agent is multi-threaded, there's a small amount of overhead for maintaining isolation between the different ABL sessions or different threads that are running. In 12.2, we took a really hard look at how we could reduce that overhead. We looked at, in particular, CPU-intensive operations because those are the ones that, where the PAS-OE agent's AVM takes the biggest hit. These are operations that don't take very much time anyway, and so the overhead is sort of disproportionately larger for those. So that's why we focused on the CPU-intensive operations. Incrementing a variable 1 million times or something like that. We were able to get the PAS-OE agent very close to just as fast as a single-threaded client. The comparison is very close. It's within 5%, and so we feel pretty pleased about that.
Okay. Thank you, and good work on that. Another thing we did for performance was server-side joins. They've been a big performance improvement in the 12 family. Shelley, could you give us an update?
Sure. Let's just look back and remember why we did server-side joins, right? The idea is rather than returning all of the possible records from the database server to the AVM, we will do the joins actually on the database server themselves. So this reduces the amount of data that needs to be transferred across the network, as well as keeps the processing on the database server rather than in the application itself. So in 12.0, we implemented 4 statements with no lock. 12.1, we added forward-only dynamic queries with no lock. And in 12.2, we added non-forward only dynamic queries. So just a note, all of these have a max of 10 tables and need to be in the same database.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Rich, I know the database had some performance wins, right?
Yeah, definitely. But let me start with some stuff we did in Promon to actually help you monitor your performance, a little aside from the as a lot of folks know, there's been this we call it advanced R&D section of Promon that was semi-hidden. What we've done was made that now a first-class citizen, so that from the R&D section of menu of Promon, you can choose option 6, which is the advanced R&D section, and that'll help you monitor a lot of performance-related stuff, like the resource queues that you have that will really affect performance if you have a lot of weights on resource queues, as well as latch information, which has kind of been hidden from the average user. Most of the other information on this advanced R&D section is really for debugging information for tech support and development, but it does give you really in-depth insight into what's going on in the database. We also provided the ability in Promon now to disconnect secondary brokers, which in the past you'd have to go kill them explicitly, which of course has the chance of bringing down the database depending on what they're doing when you kill them. So you can nicely disconnect them from the database through Promon now. And we also report those secondary broker startup parameters in the log file, which wasn't there before. So you can better to monitor what's going on when, so when you can set things up when you restart, or tech support can see from your log files how things were set up in your environment. More specifically, from the performance side of things, we enhance the performance of read activity on the sequences. So every time you do a get current value from a sequence, you actually need to go grab the sequence block that's sitting in shared memory. When you have lots of users that are trying to get the current value at the same time, it causes this bottleneck, or this loss of concurrency, which then affects your OLTP users who are trying to add new orders or whatever, get a new sequence to add a new order. And so to separate those two things, what we did was we anchored where all the sequence blocks are in shared memory, and when you read them, we do atomic reads reads, as so we no longer have to go through the hash table and through the buffer pool to go find where things are. We can just very quickly read the current values. This we believe is going to help a lot of customers who use sequences for workflow activity. Such as monitoring a sequence to see when a sequence value changes, and then acting on that, jumping to the next part of the workflow. Like someone might be monitoring the order sequence in order to see when a new order was added, and that indicates to them they need to go do something else. So it's used in a workflow environment. Those type applications tend to really beat on the sequences, the sequence blocks, and cause. Sometimes I've seen it that they're asking for the current value so often that it's hard for them to create new orders, right? That's what we've seen. So we've resolved that with this change. So we're really hoping that customers will see a difference here.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Now, Shelley, I know you want to talk about the OABL and performance.
Yeah. So we're always looking at performance, as we've talked about, right? The OOABL is nothing new, and one area that we do have reuse is in an object cache. That after an object is deleted, so whether it's explicitly deleted or deleted by the garbage collector, we can reuse that memory rather than having to recreate an object over and over again. So a lot of times applications use the same types of objects, so orders and customers, and so we can save that overhead of creating that memory by reusing these objects, reusing the object memory in the cache. So there's some places where that wasn't possible, and there were some places where it was really hard to do. We addressed some of the really hard to do ones in 12.2. So objects with events and objects with static data sets can now be reused in this object cache. And so applications that are heavily using, we found a lot of people really use static data sets extensively in their objects. And so those applications should really see a performance boost as well as the ones with events.
All right, thank you. I think that's it for performance. Did I miss anything, guys? No. Okay. All right. So let's get
Roy.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Tim.
I would just say that on that last topic of reusable objects, just refer to you should refer to the reusable object cache startup or reusable objects startup parameter. You might need to increase that in order to get the benefit. The default is a little bit low, in my opinion.
All right. Good tip. Thank you, Tim. That it now, guys? All right. Wait, one more. So finally, I think we're finally to developer productivity. And do you need a breath, Shelley? Are you ready to move on with what we did with Java?
No, I'm excited.
All right.
So as we all know, last year Oracle announced that the last public update for Java 8 was in January 2019. So obviously when we were working on the 12 release family, we knew that we needed to think about upgrading our Java version from Java 8. So with 12.2 being an LTS release, right, long-term support release, we wanted to move to a Java version that was also an LTS version and would be supported through many years moving into the future. So we selected Java 11, which is the next available LTS. There are later versions of Java out there, but they're not LTS versions. And that Java 11 has extended support through September of 2026. So there were some benefits by moving to Java 11, and that's really with a lot of our Java capabilities are from third-party libraries, and the third-party libraries have really improved their security and their functionality in Java 11. So with us moving to Java 11, we can now upgrade those libraries, and we could take advantage of all of the improvements that they've made. And also with Java 11, we had access to more modern ciphers and cryptographic hash algorithms.
Wow, well said.
Wow, ask Mike Jacobs what that is. No, so right? So our encryption algorithms, are tighter, right? Are more newer ones. And then, so starting with 12.2, when you install it, you're going to notice that the installer is going to require that you have a JDK version of 1.04 or greater. We have full support for both Oracle JDK and the Adopt Open JDK 64-bit. Java 11 is only available on 64-bit, not on 32-bit. Just a note of record.
Okay. Thank you, Shelley. Let's give you a break. And Tim, we made a change to PAS-OE with something called HLC. Can you explain that?
Sure. HLC stands for host language call. And, one of the wonderful things about working on OpenEdge is that we have so many successful customers who've been with us a very long time. Some of you have created applications, complex applications, part of which are written in C, which were integrated into OpenEdge long before DLLs were commonly used. And so Progress has had, from the very early days, a way of integrating your C code with OpenEdge. Up until 12.2, customers had to integrate their application with Progress by linking their own separate versions of the Progress client and the app server. And there was no way that their application could be integrated with PAS-OE, because PAS-OE was a multi-threaded product. We didn't allow HLC integration. So in 12.2, we've changed this. These customers can now wrap their C code in a DLL and link it in a snap. In addition, we provided a way to integrate their DLL in a thread-safe fashion with the multi-threaded app server, so that their application can be migrated to PAS-OE. So this, of course, all simplifies the build and deploy pipeline and enables these customers to continue to be successful with OpenEdge.
Right, and we had customers waiting for this, right? So
that's right.
I'm going to call them today and make sure they all know what's out there.
Oh, they know.
Oh, they know. All right, Shelley, you got a little break. Are you ready to continue?
I'm ready.
Especially with PAS?
Yes. So one of the exciting things we've been doing with PAS is looking for better ways to deploy ABL applications within PAS and actually across PAS instances, which we haven't had before. So there's a new deployment package format. This is known as the OpenEdge Application Archive, affectionately known as OEAR, OpenEdge Application Archive. And it's a deployment packaging where the application and all of its configurations and other artifacts are configured together as a single unit. When we did before, the only thing we had was WAR files, and WAR files are really just being able to deploy your web application, right? But all of the ProPath and ABL specific stuff was not included in that, as well as other configuration files. So now that that we have this all packaged together, one thing you can do is easily move an ABL application from one version to another. So right now, if you have something in 12.1, it's harder to move to 12.2. Well, starting with 12.2, you're going to be able to just generate one of these. It's called export one of these OEAR files, and then you can import that into a 12.2 or anything later than that PAS-OE instance. So it's really exciting to be able to make that a lot easier for our customers to do. And the other thing that this enables us to do is put the packaging and deployment into a CI/CD pipeline, right? So before you needed to go to our IDE, PDS OpenEdge, to generate the WAR file, and now we have it as a command line option to generate the OEAR file. And so that can just be done as part of a CI/CD pipeline and deployed and tested as automation, which is really great.
Okay, thank you. Since we're on a theme right now of three-letter acronyms, Rich, do you have anything? 4. I lost it there. Do you have anything that you want to say about productivity and maybe SQL?
Yeah, so one of the things that was done for the SQL product was to support the ISO date functions. So now you can, as we all know, there's ISO day, ISO week, ISO year. So you can do like a select star from order where ISO year of a date field, order date, let's say, equals 2020. So now you can actually use the ISO year, week, and day functions to analyze information that's stored in a native date date field. The other thing that was done in SQL is they implemented this autonomous schema update. Now, they always have these great names, right, for this stuff. It sounds so exciting. Also known as ASU. So we've got another abbreviation or acronym to go here. And what this allows you to do with this option set, it allows you to update the SQL width automatically when a query executes and sees that the width of the data that's being retrieved is larger than the SQL date that's set for that. As we know, the ABL doesn't by default enforce the width of the data that you can store in a character field, and that's great for one of the powers of the ABL. But for the SQL standard, it becomes a problem when things go beyond the date that's been go beyond the size that's been expected. The data before would fail. You have the option now to truncate the data, but with this new option, you have the ability to automatically update the SQL width in the schema so that on the next query the data won't be truncated.
Very cool. I know it's always been a problem with SQL databases.
Yeah.
Excellent. Shelley, were there any OOABL performance improvements, or productivity improvements?
We did a couple of features. So we have callbacks, event callbacks on handle-based objects. There are some places where we did not allow a method to be set as the callback. So for 12.2, we add the ability to set the read response callback on the socket object to a method in a class. So now that method will execute when there's data on the socket or when the connection is closed. We also added, this is a request from our customers, that a very frequently asked request, which was to add package access modifiers to our classes. So we added 2 new access modifiers, package private and package protected. Package private says only classes within the same package. So classes have a namespace, right? It's called a package in the ABL. Only classes, package private says only classes within that namespace can, or within that directory, can access these files. There's also package protected, which says I want the classes in this package to access this class, but I also want anybody who subclasses me to be able to access me, because of course that's what protected means. So package private keeps it where it's only within the directory or the package that this class is part of, and package protected extends it to subclasses as well.
Okay, thank you. Tim, was there something else we did for productivity?
Yeah, well, we went to the ideas portal on communities and pulled the top voted feature request, which was to provide a way to get compiler warnings on methods or functions that are missing return statements. And so this is an option. Obviously, you enable it when you compile ABL code, and it'll tell you where in your code you have branches that are missing a return statement.
Excellent. Thank you. And I did want to say the IDEA portal is open, and we are looking at that every time we look at the stories now. So if you don't know about it, take a look at it and start voting for your favorite items there. Are there any? So I think that's it for productivity. Are there any features that may have not fit exactly in one of these three themes that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I've got one, Roy, I'd like to bring, we haven't talked about yet. This is kind of from a user experience point of view. And from a database perspective, our users and users tend to be DBAs, right? And this feature, I love this feature. I mean, I use this feature every single day. And, you know, it's kind of like a small feature, not a big deal. People, oh, it's just, you know, but I'm telling you, I use this thing every single day. So, you know, over time, in the past, we used to have all these parameters for the utilities where we would say, oh, don't include any vowels, right? We'd make them as short as possible and no one could ever remember what they were. So then what we did was we said, okay, now put the vowels back. And now we've got these names that are like 20 characters long, like display create toss limits. I'm always like, which one goes first? Display create toss limits or toss create limits? Which way? I can never remember, right? And then we've got these other, you know, options to the database tools like ePolicy or partition manage, and they've got sublevels and it goes deeper and deeper, and I can never ever remember. So then I got to go find the doc, query the doc, and get that up, and it's really time consuming. So what we decided to do was add help text to the database utilities. So all the utilities that are listed in the DB admin guide now have a dash help option, and it's a multi-level help option. So if I just want I want the high-level help for all the options to ProUtil, I can do ProUtil-help, and it gives all of them to me. If I want to look into a specific one that displays like ePolicy, I can look at ProUtil ePolicy-help, and it gives me a finer listing of just the parameters that are associated with ePolicy. So it's kind of a hierarchical help as opposed to giving you all, every single help option of every single, feature that's associated with the tools, because that would just be too unwieldy. So it's not a complete man page, but it does give you all the parameters that you can specify in each of these utilities. And I'm telling you, I use this thing every single day.
As a person who needs help a lot, I think I'm going to use it too. Is there anything else we'd like to talk about? Security, is that something we want to talk about? I know we did a bunch of security work, but it's not very sexy and not very, it's like insurance, you have to have it. No? All right. So we did do a bunch of security stuff. You can look in the content and find that. There was one other really big change that's happening, and it's also one of the biggest hit things on the communities right now, and that was we added something called long-term support for the product lifecycle. And I'm hoping, Oleg, you can spend a couple minutes giving us a quick overview.
Sure. And for those of you who are members of CVP, I've recorded a little video just prior to announcing, seeking your input, and we incorporated some of the questions we received into Q&A that is now posted alongside with a new lifecycle policy. Our intent was to give you extra confidence in investing and planning to migrate from old releases to new release, with a strong knowledge that this is a release we are equipped to stand behind, the full OpenEdge team, and support you to make sure that stability is ensured and backward compatibility is at the forefront of any changes we are going to be making going forward. We have invested and continue to upgrade our internal processes and tooling to ensure a release of further updates is provided with quality and due diligence, as far as we have established change management board to ensure that necessary critical changes get into your hand with safety and confidence. In the meantime, For those of you who want to deploy and forget kind of stable platform foundation for your business, you will benefit from LTS. We will continue our fast pace of innovations through so-called non-long-term supported releases, giving you opportunity to explore and benefit from a new innovation coming into your hands as we continue. And so later this year, we are looking to introduce release 12.3, which will be non-long-term supported, but introduce new changes, new features that hopefully will benefit and put you in a position to win business and serve your customers. There's plenty of more. I won't take too much time. Please send us your questions. I will be happy to help you, but this is after many years of listening to you and looking at where the market is evolving, and we basically want to put you in the best position to be successful with OpenEdge. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Oleg. Yeah, and like I said, your video was one of the hottest things on CVP for quite a long time, and the product availability guide, and those things are explained also on our community. So go look at those if you have more if you need more information. All right, panelists, one more time. Did we miss anything? Looking good. All right. So here comes the scary part. We're going to start taking questions from the people online. And if you are online and you haven't asked a question yet, please go ahead and put it in the questions box, and we'll see if we can get to it. We will also make sure that any questions that aren't answered here are answered after the fact. So one of the questions that came up is Docker containers available for OE12. Oleg, can you give us a status on that?
Docker container so we have published both Progress Application Server for OpenEdge and database as Docker containers. They are available on both ESD, electronic software download website, and also on Docker Hub. I will say, while application server has been developed on Docker to support production deployments, and it was specifically validated with the Enterprise Docker Edition, we have added database support specifically to support developers and continuous integration use cases in particular. We're thinking about situations where developers need a fresh database quickly stood up. A container could be brought up in seconds. And if you want to cycle through fresh database, whether you're doing security or performance testing or simply want regression testing, now your team has access to clean database at just like that, easy. So with that, we want to know that we have not intended the database containers to be used in production. There are questions about safety of your data. What happens if container goes away? If you connect it to orchestration like Kubernetes, we haven't tested performance, so we don't encourage you to use and don't support this use case. But it should give you a huge boost in productivity to benefit from continuous integration pipeline setup.
Okay, thank you, Oleg. Here's another one. I think this one might be heading to you, Rich. Can you publish a batch of triggers in a transaction, or does it have to be done sequentially?
I'll hand that over to Tim.
Oh, Tim, that's a hot potato.
So when we're talking about this is for trigger, for deploying triggers on a running application. Is that what's meant by this question?
I would think so, since that's what you talked about before.
Yeah.
So when so this is related to continuous operations and making schema changes to your database triggers, being able to do that online. But is the question about then deploying the trigger procedures?
Can you do it in a batch mode? I'm assuming, can you broadcast a whole bunch of them out to batch running processes, and how do they handle the triggers when they're deployed?
Okay, yeah, certainly. When you can make all of your online trigger changes, but before you make your online changes to your schema, you certainly want to have in place any new or changed trigger procedures that are necessary. Once those are in place, then when you make your online change, the live application will immediately pick those up, and actually it waits until the end of the current transaction whatever transaction it happens to be in, and then it will cut over to start using the changed database trigger configurations you've set up.
Okay, I hope we answered.
Hope that answered that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we answered what they were looking for. But we answered a question, so we'll call that a win and move on. This one, does Okta work with 12 SSO? And that's OKTA. I don't think we've done any work with Okta yet, have we?
So I can take this, so Shelly can chime in. I think we both looked into Okta. We are looking at the Okta, first of all, is a company that provides cloud, mostly cloud solution. They have on-premise as well for identity management. So they handle authentication, single sign-on, make it easy to integrate to login screens and flows, forgotten password, etc. We had a preliminary discussion. We met them at a conference a year ago. We are looking at possibly joining forces and make it easier to provide authentication for OpenEdge build application. So nothing to say yet, but we are in preliminary exploration stages, how to make it easy and bring to our community. Okay. Shelly, anything from your end?
Yeah, so as an external authentication provider, right, you can use Okta today. What we're referring to is working closer with them is being able to have this be an easy integrated solution with like the OpenEdge authentication gateway to work with Okta and be able to use that as something that we're optimized for. So you can use Okta today just like you can use any other, external provider, OAuth2 and JWT, but we're looking at working closer with them, similar to what the partner program we were doing with AWS.
Okay, thank you. Here we have an easy one. Where can I find a migration guide in OE 11 to 12? And of course, as of release of 12, we have a brand new doc hub, which is available, and it's docs.progress.com. We'll bring you to the 12 version. And if you're looking for OpenEdge, I think you click on OpenEdge, and then there's a great get starting link. So I think that's where you want to start with that. And if you can't find specific you're looking for, there's also a search option there. So let us know if you don't find what you're looking for, and we'll try to help you find that. There's, like I said, there's a search option, and you can also make comments online, and the doc group will see that and try to help you.
And just, Roy, can I add a
sure,
note to that?
Absolutely.
So, I know I get questions a lot of times is it worth going to 12.2? I've already been testing on 12.1 or 12.0. And we've added a lot more migration capabilities and diagnostic capabilities and troubleshooting in 12.2. And so I think my recommendation is if people have that option to move to 12.2, that makes a lot of sense because the migration is a lot easier. The diagnostics and troubleshooting is better, especially when you're moving to, PAS for OE. So that's just my plug to get to 12.2.
There you go. Everybody buy 12.2 or move up, right? If you already have it, just move up. I don't see any other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? Are there any improvements for TDE in 12.2? Rich, was there anything?
The changes for TDE had to do with providing improved hashing algorithms for the key store. So you've got more secure admin and user passphrase. They're going to be stored within the key store. We've also added some new ciphers for the database master key. These are PBE ciphers. In the past, I think it was we referred to as cipher number 6 was the DES version of the PBE ciphers. In 11.2, we're going to use the new AES, or more modern, I'll say, AES counterparts, AES 128 and AES 256 PBE ciphers, and those will be cipher 11 and 12. There's also an info option to the ePolicy. I think it's ePolicy info or something like that. That you could use the new help to find out what that command is, and you can look at that to see all of the ciphers that are available for the DMK, and you'll see now there are these new AES ciphers.
All right, so we've come up to the newest ciphers and to make it more protected.
Yep.
As
and
things
I
change.
My help option again today. So I use that every day.
All right. Here's another one. Do we still have time? We have a couple more minutes. If I have 12.0 compiled code, do I have to recompile to move to 12.2?
No.
That was a quick answer.
Unless you want to take advantage of features, right?
I'm sorry, Shelley.
Unless you want to take advantage of the new features.
Right. So if you want to
the new ABL language and etc.
Right. Package protected. Yeah. Package private.
Callbacks. Socket callbacks.
Let's see what else we have a whole bunch of questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for putting them in. There's so many that I'm having trouble getting through them.
We do plan to answer, questions that we can't get to during the seminar. Just filling the air while you're looking, Roy.
Yeah, thank you. I think I've hit all the highest priority ones and all the ones that I can understand.
I can help you also. I see some questions in the queue.
Sure.
So Rich, there is some question maybe on database side. Would it be possible to create a pro backup that is OS independent and from which you can pull tables? I don't know if it's generic enough to answer here. When you don't have replication, it would be great to have a backup that is OS independent and extract data tables at another OS. Use the pro
extraction. The extraction, I'm not exactly sure. So I guess maybe I don't understand the whole question. We have researched in the past, and it is on our roadmap to implement a platform-independent backup and restore capability, as long as the BI file has been truncated before the backup. So this has to be an offline backup with the without the no recovery option. As far as extracting individual tables from a backup, we have not looked at supporting that. The way that that's done today is through a binary dump of a table, and that is machine independent, so the platform independent, and that would be how you would do that today.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think we have hit the end of the hour. So I want to thank all of our panelists today. And I want to thank everyone online for joining in the discussion. We hope you all found it beneficial. And we look forward to seeing you again in our next discussion, which happens to be April 28th. And it's talking about migrating Classic App Server to PaaS for OpenEdge. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.